report.
Tonight, a truly shocking poll for the Liberals and for Labor as well. How much trouble are they in? And the pothole that proves Labor has ruined Victoria, causing more than 30 burst tyres just this morning on one road. Plus one of history's most astonishing frauds, this Quidditch professor at Cambridge University, and astonishing audio of race-baiting Senator Lydia Thorpe triggering a complaint to Parliament. But first, we've learned today that no, the Prime Minister has not got away with his unbelievably sexist mockery of Japan's Prime Minister. And now Anthony Albanese is lying about it, one of his ministers as well, which I'm about to prove. Now, as you know, I said from the start that the media was missing the real scandal about Albanese's disastrously flirty interview last month with comedian Nikki Osborne. All the headlines were, maybe it's natural, about this particularly boorish bit of it.
Every guest gets asked these. Shag, marry, date. Kylie Minogue, Nicole Kidman or Rhonda Birchmore?
I've just got married. I'm only 6 months in.
But if it goes tits up, let's just pretend.
Oh, Kylie, clearly.
You'd marry Kylie and shag her and date her?
All of the above.
Look, I still fail to comprehend how that could have happened. I mean, which Prime Minister would ever have said something so demeaning of the office and such an insult to his own wife? But as I said from the start, and I said it again last week, for Australians, for our nation, the real scandal was what Albanese went on to say in that same ridiculous interview about Japan's Prime Minister. And boy, has that bitten him today in the backside. Now, let me outline it again, what he said, because it really is hard to comprehend without seeing it, that an Australian Prime Minister could actually act like, well, like such a sexist. Last May, Japan's Prime Minister, Sanae Takaichi, came to Australia and gave Albanese the gift of a crown melon. Now, that's a melon that's so prized that it's presented in ceremonies in Japan, presented even to the Emperor. But Albanese then turned the ceremonial present into a dirty joke to impress a pretty young blogger, Nikki Osborne.
The Japanese Prime Minister brought a melon.
Did she smuggle it?
I don't know.
Oh, I'm expecting...
Got a couple of melons.
She brought two.
She brought two, as you do.
Now, today, Japan's former ambassador to Australia, Shingo Yamagami, who's been an informal advisor to Prime Minister Takaichi, blasted Albanese for being so crass and offensive, writing first that it is appalling to note Albanese's ignorance about what this gift means, although Albanese recalled it as quite strange. A crown melon is the most prized fruit in Japan and treasured as something special. And then the former ambassador attacked Albanese's sexism, saying Takaichi had put up with a lot of sexist attacks before, but the last thing she expected was to be so casually mocked by the trusted leader of Japan's special strategic partner. And he went on, Prime Minister, please enjoy Japan's sweet and juicy melons without thinking about a woman's anatomy, and instead focus on what our two countries must do together. Now, this savage criticism follows a Japan Times article I talked about last week by journalist Waka Ikeda, saying a woman may run the world's fourth largest economy, stare down Beijing's threats and still be reduced by an allied Prime Minister to two melons on a podcast. The joke was beneath him and beneath Australia. Well, the attack from the ambassador today, the former ambassador, has finally forced the Albanese government to respond to what Albanese did 2 months ago in two ways. First, by lying. Albanese's spokesman, herself a woman, had the hide to claim that no, Albanese had not turned Japan's Prime Minister into a sexist joke, saying this assertion is wrong. The Social Services Minister, Tanya Plibersek, a supposed feminist, repeated that lie this morning.
I completely disagree with that interpretation of what the Prime Minister was saying. I completely disagree. Japan is a very important strategic and economic partner. It was a very successful visit. And I think the former ambassador is wrong in his interpretation.
How stupid do Albanese and Plibersek think you are? Now, of course, Albanese was referring to Takayishi's breasts. A statement from the Japanese Prime Minister's office at the time when she gave the gift said, yes, Takaichi gave him just 1 crown melon. Although other reports since seem to differ, but they refer to 1 crown melon. But Albanese seems to have turned that 1 melon into 2 to make a better joke about, 2 breasts. Even jiggled his hands over his chest after Osborne referred to big-breasted actress Pamela Anderson and leered back like a Prime Minister Benny Hill.
The Japanese Prime Minister brought a melon. Got a couple of melons. Got a couple of melons. She brought 2, as you do.
So why the lies? Why are Labor's supposed feminists, by the way, who's been so quick to smear the Liberals as sexist, now covering up for a real sexist in the Lodge? But Albanese also responded today, this is interesting, by releasing a diplomatic cable sent to him 4 weeks ago by the Japanese government, noting what it called sensationalised reporting of the incident and saying Japan did not think there was ill intention to Albanese's joke and it would take no action. That's rather classy, I think. It even said that Albanese had liked the melon so much that Japan had given him 2 more. But the point is, Japan had to assure our Prime Minister it would not punish Australia for his stupid joke. Now that in itself is so embarrassing that Albanese only released that assurance now, today, 4 weeks later, to minimise the damage done by the former ambassador's attack today. And finally, the opposition sees this for the scandal it is, and today was making noise.
Comments were beneath the office of Prime Minister. They were insulting, and the Prime Minister should make a personal apology. He's done it through a statement. I mean, the hypocrisy of Labor and the Prime Minister on this topic knows no bounds.
I think that those comments have been roundly condemned. I mean, they were grubby, they were inappropriate. And if you offend a woman, you should apologise to that woman. You should apologise personally, not in a statement. I think that the Prime Minister owes the Prime Minister of Japan a personal apology.
But I come back to the thing that stunned me from the start. Now, how could we have a Prime Minister who can be so crass and crude and sexist? Was it the whiskey he was drinking during the interview? Was it because of the young woman he was trying to impress? Why the sexism? And now, why the lies? And what will the government now do to fix the damage? Joining me is the country's top foreign affairs writer, Greg Sheridan of The Australian. Greg, always good to talk to you. Now, Albanese's melons joke and now the Japanese reaction, how serious is this?
Oh, look, Andrew, I think this is disgraceful by the Prime Minister. I kind of tried to avoid watching this. I just thought it was kind of pathetic and ridiculous, and I thought the Prime Minister was more innocent than he was. But he nominated the Japanese Prime Minister. He nominated the gift of the melon, and then he referred to the 2 melons and made those ridiculous gestures in front of his chest. Now, 2 things strike me about it. First of all, this is contemptible behaviour, which the Labor Party would condemn with a core nuclear meltdown, if any coalition politician did it. And secondly, would Albanese ever speak this way about Xi Jinping? I mean, you've got to look that the Prime Minister is not only a fool, I say that regretfully because, I've hitherto thought him a decent person, but he's also a coward. I mean, he wouldn't speak about the Chinese president this way. Indeed, he wouldn't speak about Donald Trump this way. And no country could be much more important to us than Japan. I mean, it's just kind of unbelievable. I kind of haven't commented on it before because I was sort of trying to practice a kind of psychic denial, I think.
Yeah, well, it also covers us in a collective shame, of course. There may also be that, Greg. Talking about unbelievable stories, Greg, we seem way behind in drone warfare. Now, you and I have talked about this so often. We seem years behind, particularly when you see what drones have done in the war in Ukraine. The Daily Telegraph now reports that multiple drones were recorded flying in restricted airspace above our top RAAF fighter base at Williamtown in New South Wales, between July 11 to 13. Now, we don't know whose drones they were, but we do know that the base didn't or couldn't intercept them with anti-drone weaponry, and that commanders at the base were told instead to ensure window blinds are closed to protect security. I mean, Greg, my mind is boggling at this incredibly slack defence.
Yeah, I mean, this government is a complete disgrace on defence. The only good news we've had on defence in recent years is that the Americans are going to put 2,000 personnel in Perth and have 3 or 4 submarines there at a time. I trust the US Navy infinitely more than I trust Anthony Albanese's government with our national security. But in every other dimension of defence, this government is a complete failure. We have no missile defences of any consequence. Despite all the talk, we are not making maritime missiles which we can use to keep an enemy at bay. We have no drone defence at our military bases. We're completely unprepared for anything. We have no demining capability. We have no capability to repair undersea cables should they get cut. I mean, this government, frankly, is a joke on defence. The only thing it does is pursue the AUKUS submarines without increasing our defence spend, because that can look as though it's doing something on defence, and it keeps the Americans sweet. Now, keeping the Americans sweet, that's very smart. That's the only good thing Albanese government does in defence. But our defenceless air bases, they are susceptible to drones, they are susceptible to missiles, they're completely defenceless, and all of our puny little air fleet is laid out in regulation, you know, waiting to be bombed by any enemy on the first day of conflict. This government just doesn't take defence seriously. It ought to be a major national scandal.
Well, maybe they think the cheaper option is just to issue good blinds to the windows of the military bases. I mean, it's just beyond a joke. But talk about slack, Greg, and equally naive, I have to say. Britain's Navy has had to disconnect its cameras on its naval spy drones after learning they were sending signals right back to their manufacturers in China. We're told no sensitive information was sent, just messages to prove the cameras there were working. But what does that tell you?
Well, Britain has been very weak on China. It got a little bit better under Boris Johnson, and Rishi Sunak kept that up. But Britain has been very slow to come to grips with China, and that's because, you know, the strategic imperative for Britain, and a million times more for Australia, contradicts the commercial imperative. You get the cheapest spy drones from China. So if you're being a skinflint about your defence budget, you'll buy Chinese equipment. But oh, guess what? The Chinese have put computer backdoors into it so that they can operate it for you in times of warfare. It's going to send signals back to them. They're going to get all the information. Now, we've done this kind of thing 1,000 times over, but if anything, the Brits have been even a bit worse than us. And because Trump has been so sort of erratic and everything, although he has good instincts on China, he hasn't led a proper coordinated allied response, either in technology or geostrategically. But we are full of Chinese equipment ourselves, and all of it has backdoors which the Chinese could use in the event of a crisis.
It just really staggers me, Greg. But you mentioned Donald Trump and the erratic behaviour. Now, for fear of offending the Trump supporters who watch this show, I have to say he does good stuff, but he also does some very bad stuff. Trump said he could end the war in Ukraine in one day. He got nowhere. He reckoned he could end the war with Iran in 4 or 5 weeks. That was 5 months ago. And Trump said he'd finalised a peace deal with Hamas terrorists in Gaza to lay down their arms in stages in exchange for an Israeli withdrawal. Yesterday, Israel's Prime Minister rejected that deal, saying Israel would not withdraw from Gaza until Hamas had given up all its weapons. Here he is.
Israel rejects the 15-point plan. I heard that there were those who said you didn't say it, but we did say it. And here, I am saying it again. The IDF will not carry out any withdrawal until the dismantling of Hamas and its weapons. And when I say dismantling Hamas and its weapons, that means heavy weaponry, less heavy weaponry, and smaller arms.
Now, Greg, I mention this because a lot of people are going to blame Israel for, there they go, the warmongering Israelis, you know, they're blocking another peace deal. But I blame Donald Trump for being a completely, totally unreliable ally who can't be relied upon to enforce this peace deal if Israel pulls out and then finds, oh, guess what, Greg? Hamas actually lied and didn't disarm as it promised. What do you make of this?
Well, I think I think you're right, Andrew. I have some criticisms of Benjamin Netanyahu. I've interviewed him more often than any Australian journalist, and he's done some wonderful things for Israel. But I have some criticisms of his policies in recent years. However, it is absurd to expect the Israelis to go back to the pre-terror attack borders on the basis of Hamas promising to disarm and put some of their weapons in the hands of a Palestinian technocratic committee. Now, Hamas is responsible for the suffering of the Palestinian people. It engaged in its sadistic, sexualised torture and murder of Israelis in order to provoke a big Israeli response and get the world against Israel at the expense of Palestinian lives and Palestinian welfare. Now, I don't know that Israel has handled this perfectly well, but you cannot possibly expect Israel to simply go back and wait to be attacked again on the basis that Hamas is just going to promise at some future date to disarm. And I'm very worried about the future because when Trump is gone, whoever is the next president, I think, will put Israel under enormous pressure to withdraw again from Gaza. And I mean, how realistic is it? You've got to address the humanitarian problem in Gaza, but how realistic is it to expect Israel just to go back to the borders they were attacked on and wait for the next attack? It's not helping them. Trump is not helping them with this stuff.
No, absolutely not. Greg Sheridan, thank you so much for your time. After the break, the panel and a truly shocking poll for both Labor and the Liberals. Anthony Albanese returned from a week off and welcome back. Got smacked straight away with another brutal poll. Today's news poll shows One Nation still level in support with Labor, whose backing is now down to levels last seen in the dying days of the Gillard government, 29%, with the coalition way behind on a disastrous 18%. Now, Albanese's response today was a bunch of slogans, mostly to suggest that criticising Labor's mismanagement of the country was somehow anti-Australian. But I just did wonder, did AI write his slogans?
We continue to advance our positive agenda as we go forward, and it contrasts with the opposition across the board, the three parties, the Liberals, the Nationals and One Nation, who continue to look for grievance and look for opposition. We choose a different road. We choose progress over protest. We choose purpose over chaos. We choose unity over division. How do we bring the country together? And importantly, we choose outcomes over outrage.
So much anxious alliteration from an Albanese to advance an apparent agenda absent of any advance in Australians' affluence. Joining me is Michael Kroger, former President of the Victorian Liberals, and Steve Conroy, former Labor Senator and Cabinet Minister. Michael, I must admit I'm getting poll fatigue. I've never seen so many polls come in a cascade at the moment, but they all tend to confirm that Pauline Hanson and One Nation, they are not going away. The Liberals are not improving under Angus Taylor, and Labor now is in real danger after its massive election win just last year. How much time, just from the Liberals' point of view for a start, does Angus Taylor have to improve that Liberal vote?
Well, not long, Andrew. We got 31.8% at the last election, which was our lowest vote, primary vote, coalition vote since the 1946 election, our first. So it's the worst we've ever had, and 10% lower than Scott Morrison's primary vote in 2019. So what the Federal Parliamentary Party are doing is not working. And I think they've got to look at the fact that you only approve your vote when you build a narrative about who you are. And, you know, it's been 15 months since the last election, and there's arguably a year and a bit till the next election. So 20% of the electorate still don't know Angus Taylor, 4% have no view on Albanese, and 5% have no view on Hanson, but 20% don't have a view on Angus. So time's running out. It's now important for the Federal Coalition to start announcing some major policies, major platforms, not follow the news cycle of the day. Because in 18, we need, to win government, Andrew, we need a 4 in front of our vote. And time runs out, not so much for Angus, but I mean for the coalition generally. This election could be in October and November next year. So a grand narrative of where they want to take the country, released sooner rather than later, is the really important step forward they need to take.
Yeah, but I don't know that they can agree on one. I mean, but then again, I've got to say, Stephen, I can't say that Labor is in that much better a position. Obviously, I'd rather be Labor than the Liberals with the vote as it is, but still, the vote now down to about the levels last seen in the dying days of the Gillard government in which you served. Wow, how do you explain that?
Well, I mean, Labor have made some tough decisions around tax. They changed their position on a number of tax measures, which is obviously, I think I said at the time, they would lose some paint, and that clearly is the case. You've got the Reserve Bank, who's been hammering ordinary Australians with higher interest rates, which is creating a real lack of confidence in the. They're actually remember the problems in the housing market all started long before a tax that's not coming in until next year was announced. So the Reserve Bank, the international uncertainties, the world confidence, all of those factors,
Ukraine war,
are difficult for.
Ukraine war, if you got that one.
Martians,
all of those factors.
Martians, the Congolese, the Indonesians,
did you see Donald
the
Trump
Chinese, the Liberals, the National. It's strange.
It didn't work for him.
The ball war.
Stephen, you so far blamed everyone except Labor. I mean, that's incredible. Labor drives down the vote to levels not seen since you were last in government, and you say, it's the Liberals' fault. Yeah, if it's not the Liberals' fault, well, you've actually given them praise. I don't think it is. I think it's more like One Nation and their own incompetence. But why can't you blame Labor?
Well, I did. I said Labor's lost paint because it made some tough decisions.
It didn't lose paint. It's lost the fender and a side panel. The steering wheel's gone and one wheel has fallen off. That's more than paint.
Well, I appreciate that you might like to think that, Andrew, but the Australian public aren't sharing your catastrophe.
Flesh wound, Stephen. It's a flesh wound.
No, Angus Taylor's got the flesh wounds. That's just a flesh wound, Angus Taylor says.
Oh, for heaven's sake. Look, Michael.
Stephen, the economy's going well. They're going great, mate.
Oh, dear.
Cares, Andrew, that a couple
I can't wait till Labor gets to
10%.
Let's go even better. I know.
Well.
But listen, but Michael, Labor's in real strife, isn't it? I mean, Stephen's not going to admit anything, right? But listen, Labor's in real strife in its immigration policy. You got Home Affairs Minister Tony Burke. He was going to announce a big crackdown last week to stop a blowout in the immigration numbers. Was overruled by the Labor cabinet, would you believe? And Pauline Hanson's pointed out that even if Labor did manage to deliver what it's promised, that still means adding another 1 million people in just 4 years. It's just posted Tony Burke isn't cutting migration, he's doubling down on bringing in another 1 million people over the next 4 years. Labor is lying again, and here's the worst part, you can't even trust them to stop in 1 million. This week, governors never once hit a migration target it has set. That's absolutely true, isn't it, Michael?
No. Immigration's going well too, Andrew. Just like the economy. We'll lose Stephen on this in a minute. No, it's going well too. It couldn't be going better. I mean, it couldn't be going better. The immigration in this country, as Albo said himself a minute ago, he's bringing Australians together, which is why social cohesion in this country has never been worse. Anti-Semitism has never been greater. Hatred against Jewish people in this country is at record levels. Disgusting demonstrations full of people praising terrorists. It's all going very well, Andrew, under Albo's leadership. The property market's dropping 5 to 10%. Billions have been wiped off people's home values. First home buyers have put down their 5% deposit. They've been wiped out. No, Jim and the debt's at a record level, but, as long as they keep bringing in 1 million people over the next few years, it props up GDP, it props up the revenue. And, no, Andrew, this is a shocking government led by a Prime Minister hopelessly out of his depth, and the Treasurer, as I've said for years, is also hopelessly out of his depth, and that's why Australia is an absolute mess today, Andrew.
But, Stephen, the next big test for One Nation and also the Liberals, it's going to be the Victorian by-election, obviously, which is in, 3.5 months or something. I have to say that we got more evidence today that anyone voting Labor in Victoria, at least, has to be barking mad after the way it's destroyed that state. It's wasted so much money on mad spending and corruption that it's run out of cash to fix our roads. My wife has now burst our 4th tyre, Stephen, on potholes in less than 2 years. And this morning, giant potholes like this one on the Princess Highway near Bunyip, east of Melbourne, part of Australia's highway number 1, burst the tyres of more than 30 cars. So many that were lined up all along the road, and the local Liberal member says it's not the first time either. Here he is.
It happens all the time, mate. We are sick of this crap that the government, just does not fix the roads in our area. Last year we had 30 cars pulled over at Narnagoona.
Stephen, this is Banana Republic stuff from Labor in Victoria, isn't it?
No, I think that's one of the reasons the caucus decided to make a change. And if you look at the sort of misprioritisation of infrastructure spending, where it's all been committed to one project and the rest of the state has been left with the sort of examples that you've pointed to in that clip. I mean, that's not unfortunately uncommon in the other parts of Western and Northern Melbourne and out from there. And I think, Ben Carroll's got a short period of time to get the focus of this government off some of the big shiny projects that were the focus of the previous 2 premiers, and actually dealing with the law and order issues, which we've seen, terrible incidents just last week, not far from where I was a local councillor, and you've got the state of the infrastructure all across the state. So I think Ben Carroll's got a short period of time to draw a clear distinction between himself and that he is the change the state needs, because if we just keep going along the same path that we've been going, we are heading for a wipeout. So I think Ben Carroll's got a short period of time to prove to the Victorian public he's going to talk about the issues they care about, law and order. We've dealt with the Royal Commission. Now we've got to do things on infrastructure and not put all the money into one bucket.
Michael, the Deputy Premier of the past government says it's nothing to do with him. He's the clean broom after presiding over this. What do you make of that? Do you believe it?
No, clearly nothing to do with him. He's not at fault either. Stephen's assured us it's nothing to do with Ben Carroll. I mean, he's only been there for the entirety of the Allen government and Andrew's government. We've never heard a peep out of him. So he's complicit. Look, Ben's not the answer. He's the problem. I mean, as soon as we get rid of Ben, the better, and hopefully that'll be in November. And by the way, that local member, Wayne Farnham, has been banging on to me for years about potholes in his electorate. And I thought, he was exaggerating. Well, today, Andrew, there are 41 cars at the latest count have been severely damaged by the potholes.
Gosh.
41 it's up to. So, Wayne Farnham, gold medal to you, mate. You were right all along.
And you were wrong.
It is, I mean, this is the stuff, Jess Wilson came out today with a policy on garbage bins. These are the things that actually matter to people. People say they're small policies. No, they actually matter to people. You want to be able to drive on a highway and not have your car smashed up, or not have your rubbish sitting in a bin for 2 weeks. These are the things that Labor have completely overlooked because, as Stephen said, they've put all their money in one basket, and that basket is now leaking like hell, Andrew.
No, 2 baskets. It wasn't just the suburban rail loop, railway from nowhere to nowhere. Don't forget the $15 billion supposedly lost in corruption on their big bill.
Yeah, but
$15 billion.
That's
How
not
many roads
Labor's
could
fault.
that have fixed?
Andrew, that's not Labor's
No,
fault.
no,
really.
that was a different
Stephen,
Labor.
No,
that was a different Labor.
That was the
Michael
Allen
Kroger, Stephen
government.
Conroy, thank you very much to you both. Different one. Still to come. You've got to hear these tapes from a committee where a respected academic goes there hoping to help Aborigines and then gets a blast from Lydia Thorpe, the hate monger. Listen to this. More evidence that the reconciliation movement is not just a fraud but a menace. Reconciliation? I don't think we've ever been so divided. Now, I told you the other day how a retired academic, Peter Ballan, had been monstered when he tried to give evidence to federal politicians sitting on the Joint Standing Committee on Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Affairs. Well, he's now complained to Parliament about his treatment, and no wonder. Ballan is a former CEO and academic who this year received an Order of Australia for service to tertiary education and to the community of South Australia, so he's public-minded, and a week and a half ago flew to Brisbane at his own expense to present a submission to this committee about why we should scrap race-based programs and treat people as individuals. He said that would actually help Aborigines in the long term. Well, bad luck for him that the committee includes race-baiting Senator Lydia Thorpe, who identifies as Aboriginal even though just one of her 8 great-grandparents had Aboriginal ancestry. Never mind that. And she kicked off the questions to Ballan in a very hostile us versus you way. Questions like this.
Do you think that given all of the harm that has been caused to First Peoples, we deserve at least to have the same rights and opportunities as everyone else?
Well, Ballan in turn said to Thorpe, who, by the way, is a senator of our federal parliament and also on a very good salary there, what rights were denied to Aborigines today? And of course she couldn't or wouldn't answer, but she did demand that this white man, as white as 7 of her great-grandparents, pay money.
As somebody who's not from this land, who lives here and benefits from the stolen wealth and oppression of Aboriginal people, do you pay the rent for being on stolen land to the people whose land it is?
Now, Ballan calmly explained to this senator the truth that our wealth was not stolen but was created, big difference, and that the land belonged to all Australians, and as for rent, he did pay taxes. And that set Thorpe right off. Listen to this insult and implied threat.
The racism that this person represents is the very racism that we're trying to eradicate. We're trying to eradicate people like you from the system.
Well, Ballan's session was then cut short by Chairman Jana Stewart, who's a Labor senator, who also identifies as Aboriginal, and in the lunch break he was told by security he had to leave. No reason was given, he says. He was marched out of the building by that security. Joining me, Lisa Goddard, former foreign correspondent and founder of Vidoni Media, and News24 host Danica Di Giorgio. Lisa, does that look like reconciliation to you?
Andrew, it looks far from reconciliation. Look, I think Lydia Thorpe, we all know, is all about performance politics. She's all about grandstanding. And what she doesn't like, apparently, is somebody who could remain very calm, not take on the premise of her question or allegation, and then argue a point. And I think what he went in there to say is he wishes for everybody in this country to have the same rights and the same opportunities. And if you look at what the polling says, I think a lot of Australians actually agree with him. But she couldn't handle somebody who could sit there and very calmly just answer her with, and I loved it. The questions were asked, are you on stolen land? And he wouldn't accept the premise of that. Do you accept that you should be paying rent? Well, what do you mean by rent? Like, these are the types of questions that the average Aussie sitting at home watching their television and hearing this would be saying, well, I would like to ask that question, and can someone please explain this to me? So, no, I don't think this goes anywhere near proof that this is about reconciliation at all. This is about wanting racism and division in this country so that there's extra money allocated for certain parts of community in this country and others don't get that. And that's what Lydia Thorpe is fighting for.
Yeah, but... Well, it wasn't just Lydia Thorpe, of course, because the chairman cut this guy's session short, and then security ushered, told him to get out of the building. I mean, this is the thing, Danica. If you do calmly argue back under this new reconciliation model, you're called a racist, your free speech is cut short, and you're marched out of the building.
Yeah, no, you're not allowed to have an opinion on anything. You're not allowed to present evidence, Andrew, of course, because the race baiters like Lydia Thorpe will absolutely rip your head off. I mean, this guy is an academic, an expert in his own field. He has gone to this inquiry off his own volition to try and say this is how we can unite Australia as one, because we are supposed to be as one. We're not meant to be divided by the colour of our skin. And he was marched out of the inquiry. And not that you necessarily needed an academic to give you this evidence, Andrew, because, of course, 60% of us voted no to this sort of disunity, no to being divided by the colour of our skin. But I was thinking about it, realistically, what else does Lydia Thorpe have to offer? OK, she doesn't want reconciliation because she's got nothing else to talk about. If she's not angry at people, she doesn't have any other arsenal. And her anger actually isn't getting her anywhere because reconciliation is nowhere to be seen. Closing the gap, nowhere to be seen. Outcomes for Aboriginal Australians, well, nothing has changed. So she can whinge as much as she wants. She's not actually doing Indigenous Australians any favours.
When I was away last Thursday, and I apologise to viewers, unavoidable circs, the ABC finally apologised to multi-billionaire Gina Rinehart. That was nearly 4 weeks after screening a film fantasising about sodomising her with a stick and turning her guts into paste. She is still suing the ABC, and I think no wonder. What amazes me, Lisa, is that the ABC bosses first defended this film as satire, then said they couldn't comment while their ombudsman took another look. And then when that ombudsman last week actually said, oh, look, the film's satire and just satire and editorially justifiable, it then overruled this judge that, oh, look, she's so important that we can't comment. The managing director overruled her anyway, finally said, sorry, what does all that tell you, apart from the fact that the ABC ombudsman should be sacked?
Well, the ABC Ombudsman, it's basically having you're checking your own homework at this point, aren't you? So she's there as part of the ABC. She's reporting to the ABC board. The ABC board should have been able to come to this decision by itself. So I think the Ombudsman needs to be put to one side and someone independent outside of the ABC should be looking at what is happening inside that media organisation. And you're right, editorial standards need to be seriously questioned when this could be put to air. And we've been saying this now since you broke this story 4 weeks ago. What I'm interested to see is if Mrs Rinehart pushes ahead and if she pushes ahead in a civil matter against the ABC, what would be good is that I understand they will then have to reveal exactly what the process was, who was involved, what questions were asked and who actually gave the tick of approval for this to go to air, because we all know that there is not just one person that magically puts this out and suddenly it's out for the audience to view. There is a level of process here and that process has not been scrutinised, and I agree with you, the ABC can't just stand back now and be forced to give an apology. They have to show some action. Someone should lose their job, at least one person.
Danica, what do you make of this?
Well, I think Lisa's absolutely correct here. I think that the Ombudsman should be sacked. Somebody does need to lose their job for this. But also what struck me, Andrew, was that the Ombudsman said, oh, well, none of the editorial policies have been breached. Well, if that's the case, they've got a very big problem with their editorial guidelines because that should never, ever have gone to air in the first place. And I also think it's a very rich for the ABC to now come out with this apology. Yet it's taken 4 weeks. It's taken the threat of legal action. It's apparently taken an investigation by its ombudsman for Hugh Marks to finally say sorry. And yet I'm sure you're aware, Andrew, still on its website, there's also an essay which tries to draw comparisons between Gina Rinehart and the fictional character in and Star Wars Jabba the Hutt. So it's like we've apologised, but we've still got this on the website. I just think that there is double standards at play here. But no, somebody does need to lose their jobs because it is an editorial oversight and we're paying $1.2 billion a year for it.
What does it say about an ABC that actually needs a new policy saying you should not fantasise about sodomising a woman and the rest? I won't go into it all, but what kind of cretins do you employ that you actually need to write that out? I don't get that. Just quickly, Lisa, former Treasurer Josh Frydenberg is the most senior Jewish politician elected in this country, has been refused an invitation to give evidence to the Royal Commission into anti-Semitism, even though he was very influential in forcing the government to call that Royal Commission after the Bondi massacre. Here he is at the time.
You must call a Royal Commission into what has happened here and into the rise of anti-Semitism in our country.
What does this tell you, Lisa?
Yeah, Andrew, I've seen people today question this as being very puzzling as to why he isn't being called. I would suggest, and maybe I'm off to the left of centre here, but I would suggest that this is more about politics, because it was Josh Frydenberg who came out and said the Prime Minister had to take personal responsibility for this. The Prime Minister did not want to call that Royal Commission. It was Josh Frydenberg who was one of the loudest voices in this country pushing for this accountability. He understands what issues were being raised before the massacre. He understands who knew about that and who was being told that. And you can only presume that that's the very evidence that they do not want to be heard in the Royal Commission. And yet that's exactly why we're having this Royal Commission, to hear from people like Josh Frydenberg. But last week we had pro-Palestinian lawyers who were in there who basically hijacked it. So it's OK to hear from that side, but no, we don't want to hear from this country's most prominent Jewish politician. It makes no sense whatsoever.
Yeah, I'm actually completely out of time, Danica, but I just want to quickly ask you, what do you think all this amounts to?
Well, Andrew, I was at Bondi the morning after the attack, and what we needed at that moment was leadership in this country. We didn't get it because Anthony Albanese, he went there for 5 minutes, laid a bouquet of flowers and then didn't return, as you remember, because he was so scared about being booed. The person who provided that leadership was Josh Frydenberg, and it's such a shame and it's an oversight that he has not been invited to give evidence.
Lisa Goddard, Danica Di Giorgio, thank you very much to you both. After the break, look, I have to say, am I exaggerating? One of history's great frauds has quit as a Cambridge professor. But how did he get away with his incredible lies? A most extraordinary fraudster, Jason Arday, has resigned as a professor at Cambridge, one of Britain's two top universities, and our head should roll. Now, I told you about him last week. From the start, his claims sounded too good and impossible to be true.
My name is Jason Arday. I'm Professor of Sociology of Education at the University of Cambridge. I was diagnosed with autism at the age of 3. I learned to speak just before the age of 12, so I was 11. I learned to read and write when I was 18 years of age. Those milestones became quite significant. 12 years after learning to read and write, I gained a PhD, and then I ended up becoming one of the youngest professorial chairs in Cambridge's history.
Now, with a story like that and being black, hiring him would make Cambridge seem so enlightened that his boss nearly cried to welcome him.
Hey, so good to see you. Here's his new boss at Cambridge.
We are so lucky to have you. You are the best in the world in terms of the research that you do.
But now our day's extraordinary lies have been exposed. Here are just a few. His PhD plagiarised another student's thesis in nearly 200 passages. He also faked quotes in his research. He falsely claimed to have raised $10 million for charity. He falsely claimed to have worked for an aid group overseas. He falsely claimed to have run 30 marathons in just 35 days, some of them with a broken leg. He falsely claimed to have been a visiting professor at 3 universities. He falsely claimed someone sent him a pig's head as a threat. He falsely claimed to have started the documentary 7 Up 21 years before he was even born. And on it went. When a literary supplement investigated his plagiarism, Arday called the police, who actually warned the journalist to drop it. And he did. But now Ardea has resigned, admitting nothing, and Cambridge academics are demanding the university have a proper investigation into how it let itself be conned. Joining me from London is Talk TV host Samara Gill. Samara, this is just so astonishing. A lot of academics have first defended Ardea when his story started to unravel. How are they coping with it now?
Look, it really is a case of the not so talented Mr. Ardea, isn't it? I mean, I think the most amazing part of this, the fact that Cambridge never cross-checked any of this. They were defending him until the end. And this just shows how much they wanted someone like him to be within their institution and how they would stop at nothing to have someone like an Ardea basically be the poster child for everything that they're trying to or have been trying to apologize for decades. So it's just ridiculous. You know, he was created in their image. They feel so much guilt around this. They wanted a child of wolves type that they could empower and shelter and save. And this guy has done more for actually detracting from Black Lives Matter than anyone else. He's done really, really terrible things, in my opinion, to the black community because he's discrediting whoever will come after him. And I think that is shameful, to be honest, because people like him just glide through life without being questioned. And you're right. The fact that he called police on a journalist who even just wanted to merely investigate what was going on. I spoke to that journalist. He has no racist intentions, is ridiculous. And then it says a lot about Britain that the police told the journalist to drop whatever he was investigating, Andrew. It's scurrilous.
And it was the Times Educational Supplement. It wasn't like the Sun newspaper thing. What a joke for police to get involved. Not a joke, it's a scandal. But it wasn't, you know, we know that he was a fraud as an academic. Was he even any good as a teacher? Because we now read that some of his students accuse him of poor supervision and now want Cambridge to revise their grades upwards.
Yeah, I mean, I think that they should do that. I think it's ridiculous to anyone who has paid for one of these, in my opinion, Mickey Mouse degrees, but so be it. I mean, when I was just reading a list of what now Cambridge actually offers in terms of, you know, things like basket weaving classes, etc., the stuff that is ridiculous. I mean, honestly, I think that people should have whatever he's marked double checked. I was actually listening to an interview that he did on Talk years ago on the station we have over here, and you can tell that he's not all that. I'm really surprised that he wasn't called out before this because he can barely string a sentence together. And so the fact that he was allowed into an institution such as Cambridge to go and mark people's essays, etc., I'd be asking for my money back on that degree if it was in his field. But he's now cancelled his book tour. He's obviously resigned, and he's right to be audited. It's something that is well overdue for Mr. Ardea.
Now, it's caused a big fuss in Britain. And like I say, a number of academics signed a petition saying he was the victim of racism but being questioned. They quietly edited their names out of the petition, a number of them, including the actor Baron Cohen's brother. What is the big message in all this for you?
The big message is that we really, really shouldn't trust whatever these institutions are trying to serve to us in terms of the fact that we need to stop looking towards how people are portraying themselves and also stop ingratiating those who do fit into the image of I couldn't speak until this age, I couldn't do this. I honestly think Cambridge is to blame more than Jason Ardea. They are the people who uplifted this guy, never once questioned him and thought, oh, this is great for our box-ticking DEI policies. We should put an end to this in Europe and beyond, in Australia, the US. We need to take people on their merit and go back to that, other than, you know, having this self-fulfilling prophecy of putting people forward just for a DEI hire. It doesn't help anyone, Andrew. And Cambridge defended this guy even last week when I was talking to you. And that says a lot about what type of institution they really are and have become, because they were once great.
Yeah, they were once great, absolutely, but that makes it even the more shocking. They should throw away it all like this. It's just astonishing to me. Samara Gill, thank you so much for your time. That's it from me. Coming up next, Sharri Markson. Good night.